Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing. I'm your host, Lauren Gray. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy Friday. We are in the throes of the holiday season. We are in the chaos between what is Thanksgiving and what is Christmas and Hanukkah and New Year's, and boom, we're popped into 25 right thereafter. So it's a little rambunctious to be talking about initiatives on marketing and what to do, because if you haven't already done it and you're not already doing it, then it's too late to do anything about it. Anywho's, the idea a little bit today is to talk more, I would say existential, but more about long term considerations in what we do for our marketing strategies. We, of course, went in, hopefully, for all those prepped, prepared, and diligent, went in with a pre described process as to what you're going to be doing. Started back in late summer with the initiatives for what you were going to be doing for the holiday season, usually starting towards the end of October, usually for domestic US. Halloween is what really kicks it off. And then it goes into full swing, and then full tilt after Thanksgiving, right into the Christmas and Hanukkah season. Interestingly, Hanukkah is actually going to be following Christmas this year. So it kind of elongates some of that stuff going into directly into New Year's, and then we pop into January. All that being said, there is a growing change in perception. One, we already know that there's change in the air just from the political climate that's happening, and what will happen even more so come January. And we all handle it in different ways as to these transitions and how we handle change. A lot of us, all of us, as human nature, tend to go back to the more familiar or the more comfortable things of a time when these things weren't a problem. We kind of get nostalgic about things. We think about the music we used to listen to in high school, or the places we visited when we were younger, or the things we used to do with family, whatever it is. Holidays bring out a lot of that inherently as well. It's a very family-centric time of year. And of course, for those that may have had tragedies occur around this time, it's a very painful contrast between what they have to have as mixed emotions between the losses that they experience and the joy that the holiday is supposed to have. All that being said, there is a perspective shift in how and where we get our information. So our topic today is related to that. And that is, how new is the old stuff? And is it an indication of the decline of the internet use? Now, that's a very bold, general, swathing statement to make, that the decline of the internet. But in all honesty, there has been a measurable decline in the use of the internet. Um, Roughly, the estimate is around 11%. This is on various studies as to what people are using it for. Now, there's a lot of reasons for this. This isn't just a shutting off of the internet or a disregard of the internet. It's about how it's used and from where do the sources come from. We have gone through many cycles of growth and discovery when it comes to technology in our society these past 20 plus years. Like to think of it as somewhere around 1998 was when most of this world started to change for us. And we're about in our 25th, 26th year of this type of just full on geometric growth. There's a term for the growth pattern of it, and it's eluding me at the moment. But we've gone through all these cycles, and we've always approached, I'll say this from a personal first experience, I always looked at what can technology do for us? It was always what's next. How new and innovative is the next thing going to be? How fast is it going to come out? How quickly will they add this to what they already gave us? What new feature will be available? What new technology will be useful for this? And our biggest, shiniest toy in recent time started about a year ago, and that was AI. When ChatGPT first rolled out to general awareness, it had been out before that, but in general awareness, and about this time earlier last year, in the November-ish of last year, it was a innovative novelty, neat and interesting. And of course, everybody prognosticated that this was the change of things to come. This is the apocalypse. This is the world difference. Everyone's going to be out of a job, so forth and so on. And we went through this process of literally labeling the two initials AI after anything, even though AI, artificial intelligence, which is much different than machine learning, was really not the true definition usage of it. It was just, this is the new flavor of the day to talk about. In the conference circuits, it was a predication to every topic out there. AI and you, AI and what you're doing, AI and what your competitors are doing, AI and what the world is doing, AI, AI, AI. Oh, anyways. And we've tried to internalize that as to what does that mean for us. It's one thing to go play on ChatGPT and make funky little pictures and images and videos. Well, not videos yet. That's Sora. It's coming out now, actually, for more public usage. It's getting past the red team. What it could say to us, people abusing it, schools being worried that students were going to have it used right its papers. We went through all of this in a very compressed period of time this past year. And we've been trying to understand its involvement with us. But in all of this, we are seeing changes. Having personally lived through the transition of technology, for the examples I'm about to give, I can say that it's been an interesting arc of return for how technology is being used. When I used to work in radio, records, vinyl records, that was what we did. That's what we played. That's how we got our music. You listen to the radio, and for anybody that was back from that time period, when the songs were popular, you would have maybe your recorder, which was itself an innovation of not having it now, then having that ability to record stuff. And when the radio came on, you hope that the DJ didn't talk over the intro so you can get a clean copy of the song, and you're recording it out of the radio speaker. And they hope they didn't talk at the tail end of it so that you got a full, clean song. And then you recorded it on your cassette tape. That was after 8-tracks, by the way, where you couldn't record anything on it. And before that was reel-to-reels, which that was a lot of money to have something like that. And so we went into the world of cassettes. Then we went into the world of CDs. Like, oh my gosh, the fidelity, the quality. Wow, this is the best thing since sliced bread. Throw away I gave away crates full of records that I just cry thinking of how nobody would take them. It was either the dumpster or hopefully somebody saw that they could get a master copy of something or whatever, and they wanted to do that. It just makes me sad thinking those were lost. The idea of us going to CDs and then to MP3s and the literal revolution of what the music industry ran as, where artists got paid for the music, and then all of a sudden here we are broadcasting it on apps that weren't charging us for us anymore, and we could choose what songs we wanted to play. We could make our playlist, and we didn't record them on tapes and run the tapes and share a playlist and everything else. We were given all this technology to be able to do that, and then we're back to vinyl records. They outsold everything music-wise this past year, that people are back to turntables. And it's funny because I lived in that era where a pristine vinyl record, you took it out with cotton gloves, and it was dusted off with a really furry velveteen kind of roller thing, and the quality of your needle was incredible. You had your everyday needle, and then you had your, I only use this for special times when I really want to listen to the best way I can listen to this album, and everything. You had your equalizer, and the more bands you had to break it down as to exactly what nuance. And if you asked anybody, they had their preference, but they couldn't tell you why that little notch up on certain band lengths made a difference for them. But anyways, we're returning to all of that. And other things that we've seen technology where we're like, oh my God, this is the new wave. This is how things are done. Dating apps used to be the way. Like, having run and owned nightclubs and restaurants for my past lives, going out to clubs to meet and be social with people and to interact with people. That was the place to do it, because if you weren't meeting people that you wanted to meet in your work environment, and if it wasn't around your apartment complex, maybe it was your grocery store or something, there was very few opportunities of social abilities to get together. And back then, there wasn't the internet to tell you about what events were where and what. You either had to find it in the newspaper, hear it on the radio, see it posted somewhere on a billboard of some sort, to know that these things were happening, to go out and see if there was anybody interesting to meet. So that was the way you did this. And now all of a sudden you have technology. You can go swipe left, swipe right, find people and look at people and so forth. And you see all these. Anyways, those are almost gone now. I wouldn't say almost gone. They're far smaller in their usage than they had been in their prime. We go through this cycle. So we've gone through what technology can do. What's the next thing? What's the next advantage? What's the next possibility? To being more specific about how we engage with these technology into what do I want it to do. We're selective. We've also gone from only certain sources of information to a variety of sources of information. And that has created its own social upheaval, because gone are the days of vetting and verification before it's broadcasted. The old Walter Cronkite days where he just told you the news, didn't give you his personal opinion, didn't try to hype it, didn't try to entertain you with it, told you the news. Here's what happened. Here's for you to decide what you think about it. This is what happened over here. This is what happened over there. Thank you. Have a good night. Boom. And it was a source of of knowledge that wasn't plagiarized. Now we have so many sources, and even the legitimized, vetted sources tend to over inundate us with so many flavors because they have to vie for our attention. And that's what we as marketers have the problem with. We have to vie for attention. We have to stand out differently than everybody else is trying to stand out differently for the person that we all want to talk to. And that is the customer, our guest. And the guest, we want to figure out anytime, like lemmings, if a new channel opened up and our guest was using it, we had to get on it to get in front of them, which always was the ruination of marketers to platforms. It also corrupted the platforms because we threw so much money at them to let us talk to the people that were on them that they just shoveled it into their banks and said, sure, go ahead and start. And then, anyways, we've had all of that. And now we have AI. And AI has been with us and has been engaged with us for quite a while. We have it on our phones now. And depending on which type of phone, you have a certain level of engagement with it. It's going to, now we're in the 12th December release from ChatGPT as to what they're doing. They have their search engine now to go against the mighty monolith of Google. Google is fighting its solidarity where it's trying to be parsed and parceled out by legal entities and so forth. We're in this transitions of all these things. And people are finding where they like to get information. And a lot of people are beginning to wake up to the idea that a lot of times just seeing a TikTok post of somebody saying something is true or saying that there's a perspective of something doesn't make it true. And as we get scammed and ghosted and all these other bad things that happen to us from people that feed on the idea that if they get enough traffic, then they flourish that traffic into a viral thing, that if you say it loud enough and often enough, it turns into truth. And we're beginning to see that of all these scams and the ways that people have deceived us, we get skeptical. We've become very skeptical. We're beginning to get better at smelling bullshit, doesn't we? We're really good at finding all the things that mess us over. We don't get to go over and see all the bad data. I mean, we're still learning about how to verify when we see something that's news, like, oh my, news, what? That happened? And you look at it and the photo was photoshopped or AI generated. It's being fed from some source that has malevolent intent, so forth and so on. We've gotten this way. So now, why am I bringing all this up and ranting about this is because we're getting back to more authentic engagement that we can self-verify as coming from at least a source that we're willing to listen to. And what I mean that is literally you're talking to a person straight in front of you. We've always said out of the absolute filth that is on social media and platforms such as those, that people would never say what they say in person to the person the way they say it on social media. The venom, the rudeness, the bigotry, all of that would never. They wouldn't have the cojones to go over and stand in front of that person because they don't know whether that person's a 6'5" person or not, or whether they were going to go over and be violent if they were told that or not. But they'll do it openly and persistently. They relish doing it in the anonymity of the internet and social media platforms. So all of that has shifted. Why I'm bringing all this up as to how people consume what we're trying to tell them. And a lot of it is going back to more traditional media. As I like to say, old school with new tech. I'll take an example of billboards. That's old school media. It used to be one of the very few viable ways of getting drive traffic. And you always, back in the day when I was responsible for finding billboard spaces to advertise and so forth, you would love to have a billboard built right at your off ramp of the road that you're putting it on to say, turn here to my hotel. But they didn't have a billboard there. And, they had a roadside sign. You're like, I want to be on the bottom of it, whatever. you wanted to let people know, because you weren't inside of the road, that as people were driving down the road, hey, I'm literally 100 yards away from you behind the trees if you're looking for a hotel. And you always wanted that. And we talked about proximity marketing and so forth as being the new thing and so forth. Well, now billboards have become infinitely more affordable and infinitely easier to engage with. There are platforms that I use for clients that allow me to literally, and they'll be on our podcast, they were talking about some of these tools of old school with new tech. Well, I can go in and for $15, $20 a day, show up for a good duration of time on these digital billboards with exactly the message that I want. And it's changeable. If you're old enough to remember what billboards used to be like for advertising, it was very expensive, because it wasn't just whether you're going to get the space. You had to lease the space, and the space had to be leased for a certain period of time. The more time, the more negotiable the price. But you still had to pay for the sign to be built. And that was money. That was a lot of money. And that was a big commitment. So you had to really, when you're talking about budgeting, convince the people that were going to write the check that this amount of money would reap its value in the traffic that it would draw to show up at your doorstep. And they talk about unverifiable. Unless you actually asked every person that walked in, go, hey, did you see our billboard up the road? No, I flew in, I was on the bus or whatever. You wouldn't be able to get in. And even then, that's a sample set. So it's evolved a lot now, because now you can put things on the billboards and change things on the billboards that are centered to offers, centered to ability to know location of that person as they drove by, and whether that person enacted a engagement with you. New technology for old school marketing. There are more things like that are becoming more and more prevalent. One of the reasons why the internet, in its general statement of the decline of its usage of it, is that AI has been, as we do with all things, a dear friend of mine, Tim Peter, who did not make this quote, but I give him credit for the quote being exposed to me, was, when they made the ship, they made the shipwreck. As with any of these things, we talk about, AI for good content. AI will get you, to fill the gap of what you couldn't do for yourself. It can now help you do, and so forth. Well, great. People have gone to the extreme of that and saturated, inaccurate, unverified, repetitive, droning, oversampled data in content, and it's not accurate, and so people get misinformed. I am constantly in an auditing process where Google's questions and QA section, Google Zero, where I'm not the source of the answer, but the answer is related to me in the sense of capacity of my hotel or hours of operation or restaurant or whatever. And the source that is being used by Google for that, which Google's methodology of determining which has the authentication or the value of the traffic and whatever to be used for that answer, is inaccurate. And it was generated by that entity to literally be able to sit in that position so that it could hijack traffic that was interested in me, my business, to go to what they want to tell them about. And it's wrong information. The hours are wrong. The operation is wrong. The food type is wrong. The data is wrong. But there's no check and balance to that accuracy. We're not, unless you yourself are the policeman of your own property, which I highly promote that you do, and you're out there vigilantly looking for what's being said about you persistently and monitoring it to know when things are incorrect. People may not choose you because you're represented wrong, because somebody made up something about you and they got into a position to broadcast it. That is happening more and more. And as more and more people get exposed to that disillusionment, I guess is the most politically kind way of saying it, then they're not using the platform as much for it. They're going to rely more on direct channel resources, which is the point I'm really trying to get to about our discussion today. When I say how old is the new stuff, the old stuff is the way people are familiar with it. Just like I'm talking about the nostalgic way that people are looking at a big hype about putting Rudolph the Red Reindeer show that was built in 1964, I think it was taken off the air for many, many years for a whole host of social, political reasons, what have you. It's back. And they made a big deal about it on the Today Show on NBC because that's the hosting back on the original channel that put it out and so forth. Anyways, people are looking for that comfortable place, the hot cocoa behind the window, watching the snow gently fall outside without you having to worry about it. The comforting be at home and being safe thing. People are looking for those nostalgic things that remind them of those feelings, and they're looking more for the things that they appreciate rather than waiting for the next newest thing or what else is going to happen or what else is to slow down and say, let me just enjoy the things that make me feel good. And from that, they're relying upon more traditional things. My wife and I were talking about, we used to love the Sunday paper. And I know I'm dating myself when I say that because it had the comics, which was my first choice of reading. It was the most intelligent part of the newspaper. And then, of course, this time of year, you get the monster Thursday and Sunday papers that were just chock full of flyers. That was your way of knowing where the sales were, what the Black Friday things were, what they're offering. You get to lay them all out as to which one has what and so forth, and what are we going to do, where we're going to do it, where we're going to shop, and whether we do it on that day or whether we wait until afterwards, whatever. It was just fun. And it's gone. What we have now is what we have. We have the online inundation that is not just on the day of Friday. It's Black Friday month, and before that, it was Christmas in September, and mess of stuff. Strangely enough, a lot of that old school stuff is making its way back in. For those old enough to remember when you used to get the JCPenney or Sears catalogs, well, JCPenney's is now sending out catalogs again. They're not flooding the world with them. They're basically sending them out to places that are targeted, and they're sending them out to people that have asked for them. And it's fun because it's a slow, no tech, flipping through and just being inspired by some things that you may not be aware. Because here's the juxtaposition of search. Search means you know that you're looking for something. And a lot of times, things, ideas, inspirations, didn't know that, awarenesses come from discovery. And I rest my case on the point, if you ever go to Amazon and you're looking for the thing that brought you to Amazon, and an hour later you're looking at something that is absolutely nothing that you started looking for Amazon on, and it got you to a place that you're sitting going, why am I looking at this? That's the internet for us in many ways. The internet isn't a linear progression that we often market towards. It's a global randomness that goes in different directions based on what is put in front of us. We're just, what's in front of us? Oh, wow, look at that. What's that? Oh, what? I thought about that. Click, boom. And now you're off from whatever was on that page that got you there to now something totally different. That's why oftentimes advertising on places and things that aren't specific to your destination or aren't specific to traveling, but do inspire the curiosity of coming to you to see what it is you're talking about, are important. That's an old school technique. That's get you into the grocery store to give you a sample of food, but meanwhile, there's a banner on travel that you need to sign up for. This is old school stuff, okay? Catalogs are fun because they allow you to flip through and so forth, where you're not searching for something per se. You're just seeing what's there. It's kind of why we see a little bit of an uptick and more news coverage about people going back to malls and how malls have changed, that they're more of a social interaction where people want to go see a product rather than be presented a product online. I work with the AR stuff and the photogrammetry stuff and doing 3D renderings of things and so forth so that you can look at them. You see it all over Amazon. Put this in your room and go see. Point it down and it'll pop it in your room so you get to actually see it in proportional size to what it would look like. And it's very helpful. But there's also a part of seeing it in a store too. There's also another part of it going to a store. And I'm speaking more of retail at this point, obviously, of being able to see it and it being in stock to actually walk to the door with it, rather than the porch pirating that we're dealing with now, and the bullshit about that. Sorry, I'm using the word a lot today. Where we get to put it in our own car and drive it home, put it in our own house. Not relying upon the potential of issues to happen between when you got it to when you need it, and especially as it gets closer to the holidays that you bought it for, and that risk factor that's associated with it. Some old school things, we used to absolutely downplay snail mail, sending people stuff. It was expensive. It was dedicated to single messaging because once it's printed, and you printed it in thousands. And then you had to get it distributed. You had to pay for the distribution of it. And, people called it junk mail for a reason. The whole modicum about junk mail comes from the inspiration of receiving a lot of unsolicited junk flyers, banner things in your snail mail that you ended up literally walking and throwing into the trash on your way to going back inside or whatever. Strangely enough, it actually has a high impact, and it has a growing higher impact if you pepper it in at the right time for the right reason to the right people. That sounds very like, that's great, Lauren, put three rights together. Case in point, this goes back a long ways when weren't at this point we are now, where people are more embracing these old school things. I had a client that was a very prestigious spa in towards the west coast of the United States, towards the west, I should say, and they're very expensive to be there. This wasn't one of your casual go to the corner or just an insulatory spa. This was a full blown retreat thing, everything. And not that they were doing poorly, but we were having a poor show for a particular quarter. And we're sitting and saying, well, everything that we're doing advertising wise has responded well, and we're getting good future bookings and so forth and so on. But here's this gap point that, normally is a strong month for us, but it isn't shaping that way. And we were seeing it early enough that we could try to get ahead of the fact that we're just not seeing the pace and the trend that we had seen historically. So we thought we'd take a rationale and say, well, who came to us before when we thought we were doing good business? And we knew that income was a key element to this process. You have to have a certain income level to afford this kind of place. So we said, let's create a correlation between incomes and locations. Well, locations are best defined by zip code. So we said, let's take all the zip codes of all the people that we've had, and let's go to the general census information of all those zip codes with the income that we need, and put that on an XY axis, quadrants, 4 quadrants, the old 4 quadrant system. And we'll define it as what zip codes that we knew had the income levels produced the revenue for us. They were in the quadrant 4. So they were of the propensity because they had the income level to do it, and they actually produced for us. So those zip codes are up there. Those people are great. We're getting those people, they're coming to us, they have the money to spend with us, and they're doing so from their zip codes. Lower left quadrant was the people that had the income capability to do it, but haven't. And there was a group of zip codes down there. So we said, well, let's send them a snail mail. No special offers, because this isn't a place that does special offers. Let's just do a reminder that we're missing you and we'd love to have you back, or to see you soon, or it's been a while since you've been with us. You came with us last year at the same time. We had this mixed on this on the snail mail. And we sent it out to just those zip codes of just those people that had been in for us in business before, that we had their email list for. And we sent them the snail mail. We had a 30+% growth for that month that we were shooting for, simply for building the re-awareness that, it has been a while since we've been there, whatever. And they end up booking a trip to us. That kind of old school marketing is well when it's targeted. So that's the right people, right time, all the 3 rights together. That's when you do it. Blanketing and saturating and doing it by numbers is not. It's a blunt. It's a bazooka for shooting a fly on the wall. You're beating too much up. You're burning too many lists. You're getting too many people that don't care or are not accurately identified for the people that would be receptive to what you're sending, and you're blunting your message. Usually the best marketing is the marketing that it gets in front of the right person at the right time with the right message, the 3 rights. We've had that on a show before. And that comes from then figuring out, how do we get to them? If the internet is being blunted, not my new favorite word, of usage, where we're just not trusting the data as much because there's so much AI junk out there. There's so much misinformation out there. There's so many sources of information. A lot of them are hearsay or conjectures or opinions or whatever. And so we're getting diluted to that. We go start relying upon our friends. Back in the old days for marketing, you had influencers, but they weren't the ones that were online sharing a product with a little phone camera in front of them. They were the people that were a door down from where you live, that just geeked out, that they love knowing about the TV that they bought, and they did a lot of research with it before they finally chose the one TV they got. And my TV's acting up. Let me go ask Bob why he chose that TV, because I've seen it when he got it and it looks pretty good. Want to know what he did, since he just bought one. It doesn't mean Bob always keeps track of TVs. It just means Bob just went through the process of buying a TV and knows a lot more than me, who have yet to go start researching TVs, unless he already has to say. It doesn't mean you buy the exact TV. Maybe it does, but it does give you a sense of what it takes to understand what you need to look for buying a TV, let's say. Those types of influencers, your family members that have done it before you, they give you the advice of what they did. Obviously, it's in context to when they did it versus when you're doing it, but still, it's good perception and good perspective on those. Those are influencers. Those are old school things. So as you talk to somebody in your office or your work environment who just bought a car, hey, that's a nice looking car. When did you buy it? Blah, 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 blah. It may not be the same reasons you want a car. So good to know, but those aren't my reasons. But it's good to understand why there's something unique about that car. Is it interesting enough for me to consider it, to think about maybe this is a car that might be an option for me? That kind of influence at a very granular personal level is much more authentic, because the person that's in front of you, physically in front of you, talking to you, you already have some concept of the relationship with you. So you are going to filter what they say versus how you see them, where online, you have no idea who's on the other side of that screen. You have no idea if their preferences are the same as your preferences. They're just saying it nice enough for you to listen to, or they're showing you something you're already interested in, and you're looking to see what they say about it. The depth of impact of that kind of superficial influencer is less than the person that is somebody that you have a direct connect for, even if it's a tertiary connection to it. This old school relationships of going back to the old stuff, going back to talking to friends. What do you think? We're thinking about buying a house up north and such and such. Oh, wow. No. And they give an opinion about it. Good or bad, at least you have a different addition to what you're considering. This kind of thing is becoming more a part of how we go forward with stuff. Old school traveling. There are places geographically that persistently are the largest geographic source of business to other locations. I'll take a good example of Hollywood. Well, it wasn't Hollywood at the time. Dania Beach, Fort Lauderdale. Very strong Canadian connection to Dania Beach. Hollywood is a made-up name for them. Hollywood Beach is a made-up name. And I know. The idea was, back in the day, and I remember the old school way of all this, was families would travel to a destination. If they had never been to the destination before, it was an adventure. You went to your AAA and you got your trip tickets to know where the gas stations were, because you had no sense. There was no GPSs. There was no, there was paper maps, but there weren't gas stations on it. And AAA had gas stations on it. But the general maps that you would get at the gas stations and stuff like this were just maps showing you the roads and the towns and the size of the towns based on the dot or the boldness of the letters. And so you always had to go like, well, how far do we get before we start worrying about gas? And you see what towns are coming up and where you had to get off and look for a gas station and so forth and so on. Anyways, say, for instance, your initial trip brought you to a place you'd never been before. And you stayed at a hotel literally by finding it. Okay. And you liked it. Well, you want to come back next year. So you take their rate card with you, which was a little brochure card that told you what the rates were by season. Picture this, revenue managers. Your rate was printed for the whole first quarter or half a year or year for that room type. So that was the rate. You can say something different, but it's printed on the little card that says that that's the rate. Anyways, they go back to their home and they share with their friends. And again, we always talk about the two types of travel, the real travel that you had and the stories that you make. And they tell about what they enjoyed and what they liked and what they thought was interesting. You should try this. So now that family, having heard that from the first family, decide that they too want to go over and see what this place is about. So they go to the same place, take the same route, have the same kind of vacation. They too like it. Eventually, as that nexus grows in the geography that they live, more and more people from that area that shared their experiences make that their destination choice. Hence, Dania gets a lot of Canadian visitors over the generations and decades, because that's now the parents brought the kids nostalgically remember that as being such a fun time for their vacations. They too go down for their vacations. They bring their kids. It's a generational thing. That's why you have these geographic areas that people travel to from historical places. Going back to the old school traveling of things, when you were looking to go for an adventure, as a family on the dining table, you'd flip out the largest map you had of wherever it is that you're looking, and you would just look at it. How far do we want to go, or how much time do we have to know how far we want to go? You would look at where there might be an adventure that you want to go to. So you go to the library and you get the Dewey Decimal System together, and you go in and you find out more information. You look about finding the Chamber of Commerce address of these towns and cities, or you go to the tourism board of a state, or maybe it's even in country you're traveling, whatever it be, and you would send them a mail saying, "Hi, we're thinking about traveling X dates or during this time. Can you send us information about places to stay, things to do, blah blah?" And they sent you this really wonderful pack in the mail. It was like Christmas. You get this huge pack in the mail about all the stuff that you asked about. And as a family, you tear it open and lay it all out. And these are all the hotel brochures, and these are all the attractions and stuff. And you have it all laid out. And they give you some layout of maybe some map that they made to show you where everything was kind of importance that they wanted on it. And you would look at it and you decide what you're interested in and so forth. And the hotels wasn't always a lot of phone calls. Yes, you could, but they're long distance phone calls, and those cost money. So a lot of times, because you're trying to plan far enough ahead, you would go over and send them a snail mail saying, "Hi, this is the family Smith or whatever, and this we're thinking about coming for the dates of such and such, such and such. We saw that you had this type of room, blah blah blah. Can you tell us a little bit more of this, that, and the other thing?" And they would get a letter back, giving them the information, saying, "Well, we can confirm you for this and that." This is how it worked. That's old school. Out of all of that, then you had to plan the trip. And then most of the time, that's where AAA came into existence, is you got a map, TripTix map. They said, "I'm going from here to here." You paid for membership to AAA, and you went to the AAA place and picked up your maps that they gave you. And what it showed you was all the gas stations that were AAA approved, even though those other gas stations, if you weren't AAA approved, they weren't going to be on the map, of where to go get your gas, and helpful things on the route along the way, in case you wanted to stop and see something, especially if you asked about those things. And then if you talked to a AAA specialist that knew more about your trip, destination, and route and so forth, they would sit with you and put little pins and circles all over your map as to what you shouldn't miss, and make sure you see that and go for this, and this is there, and this is there, and be careful of this, or whatever it is. They helped you with that. And they also had their own brochures and things and hotels that were AAA approved and so forth. So you see how that whole process started. That's the old school stuff. Well, how does that apply to now? Because it still is a means of us discovering, educating, and deciding on purchases. It's still integrated in how and what we do. For that reason, we need to understand what's the best way for us to get in front of our guests in a way that's helpful and meaningful to them. And it isn't about just relying upon shoveling vast quantities of traffic numbers on internet ads in the hopes that if we hit 1 million people, even at a fraction of 0.0001%, that's still a large enough number for us to make money off of what we did. That's a dull, blunted way of doing it. Looking at things like PMAX or something that you're saturating everywhere, anything, all the time, is inundating. It's dilutes your authentication of who you are. It delegitimizes your personal engagement with your guests, dehumanizes you a lot, and it turns into a function of just fact and form, rates and dates that aren't to the benefit of the experience that people are longing for, which is the personalized engagement relationship that they can have with the decisions that they've made. The store they like going to, the smell of the place that they visit, the condition of the people that they deal with, the engagements they have with the people, and so forth and so on, are all aspects of what people want to experience. They want the comfortable, welcoming travel experience that they want to share with other people. That's where you get that lifetime value. They want to come back, and they want their friends to know that they should do it as well. When we talk about lifetime value, this is the touch point. This is the beginning, the wellspring of it. Creating that for them, matching and exceeding the expectations that you've laid out for them, and for them to then share it with others, in addition to replicating it with themselves, grows that growth, not from how many millions of people you exposed on the internet to what you're wanting to say, or how many people that don't even know your product, but you paid to talk about it. They're going to get you in front of people, and the numbers may warrant value and so forth, but it's not the genuineness that people are beginning to crave at this point, that old stuff of it. So as you look into the 2025, which you're not going to for the next 3 weeks, guarantee you, in January, you're going to come back on your first day of work after all the holidays and go, okay, let's crack open that new budget. All right, and then you're going to get your gears set into it, and you're going to get back into the saddle, so to speak. That's when you're going to start thinking about, how is all this going to be? What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? How are you going to do it on January 7th versus January 12th versus January 30th? And how well are you going to do it? And what do we have as tools, and who's doing it, and so forth and so on. So there you have it. How new is the old stuff? The decline, or the possible decline, of the internet. For all of you watching on our simulcast of Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, thank you so very much. On all of our associated associations and corporations and everything else, thank you so much for broadcasting us on your channels, for both the YouTube channel and for your Facebook pages. Following on LinkedIn, that's my personal profile. Thank you for that. For all of you watching us on the TV channel, the Hospitality Channel, thank you so very much for that, or watching us on your phone or iPad or whatever, because it is an app on iOS and Google Play, the Hospitality Channel. Download it, you always get the show. For those that watch us around the world in our 209 countries of broadcast on our TV channel, thank you for that. We do simulcast, or recast, I should say, this show again, 11:30 a.m. Sydney, Australian time for our APAC friends, and 11:30 a.m. Wednesday, London time for our EU and Mideast friends as well. Any questions that you have related to the show or the podcast, or our podcast, our radio station, or our podcast channel, or our TV channel, or whatever, please reach out to me at lauren@hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com. I answer each and every email, good, bad, indifferent, up, down, insights, comments, so forth. If you're a hospitality professional, a hospitality marketing professional, you can join our peer group where you get to ask intelligent questions with people that are in the midst of doing the same thing you're doing. So it's a welcome club of interaction, and that is the hospitalitymarketing.club. You'll see it's just a simple place to put your email in. Put your email in, I send you a quiz to verify that you are, in fact, a hospitality marketer, not somebody that is not doing it, because this is a peer group of hospitality marketers. You can be one of them. I send you a quiz. If you pass the quiz, I send you a link, and you join part of the party. And then there's tiers of relationships depending upon the depth and direction that you want to go for your inquiries. If you want to engage with me audibly, you can reach out to hdm.news/talkback. There's an audio question each week that I put out there for people to respond to, and they give me permissions as to what I can use in relationship to that. We do a lot of that with the podcast. And of course, if you have a question or anything you want to just audibly ask me on that as well, just leave it there as well. But as I said, we do have a radio station, thehospitalityradio.com. We do a linear broadcast there of several different contents of podcasts that are exceptional, but all industry-based. We're in multiple countries there, 30-some-odd countries there, along with our podcast in 30-some-odd countries. We're even on Twitch. If you do your Twitch, if you do your Rich Media on Twitch, you catch it there. We're for that as well. And if you want to watch any of our previous shows and or podcasts, we have a bit of an I Love Lucy rerun channel called the hospitalitychannel.tv. There you can go in and look for data broadcast, host, which one you're chasing for, and content. And you can go to the shows that are related to what your query is about. And if you want to catch what the TV channel is about, you can catch it online as well at talktravel.tv. I just shot a whole mess of information to you that I hope is helpful and useful. So until next Friday, enjoy the holiday craziness that's going on, and hope you're doing exceptionally well with all of it for your business. And we will catch you next week, where I believe we're going to kind of dig into a little bit of the gift card marketing and lifetime value conversation again. Lifetime value, we've kind of touched a little bit just in context today, but the gift card marketing is an underutilized and undervalued perspective that this is the time to be making bank. So you should already be doing it. So hopefully the show next week will not be a revelation to you, but maybe some tweaks and turns to things you may not have considered out of your gift card marketing program. So please join us next Friday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time for that show. So until then, my name is Lauren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time, and I look forward to talking to you next week.